Ever wonder why many people love wearing dive watches even though they may hate going anywhere near water? Dive watches are undoubtedly one family of watches that have grown tremendously in popularity over the years as high-functionality timepieces and continue to be admired by an increasing demographic of watch lovers. Hundreds of watch companies globally now manufacture dive watches today, and the range of vintage dive watches has been rapidly expanding. But what exactly makes dive watches so special, and is it ever possible to understand the weird obsession for this special family of watches? Stick around as we explore just why dive watches have attained unrivaled popularity, and why you should put it on your list. Dive watches tell more than time, and this is one core reason why they've become so popular. These watches have a very strong appeal of being very durable and flexible, making them just the perfect fit for pretty much any clothing style. Classic dive watches like the Rolex Submariner have very subtle and sleek designs, making them just the perfect fit for formal business clothing. Another all-time classic, the Omega Seamaster Professional, has a lot more sporty look and is widely considered to be more suitable for the casual business style of clothing. Many of these classic dive watches have made iconic appearances in many legendary movies over the decades, and this has undeniably contributed to the unmatched global appeal that dive watches generally enjoy. This unique family of watches are versatile timepieces that can be spotted just about anywhere and on any person who can afford one. You don't have to be a diver to own one of these exquisite timepieces. While it's understandable that underwater diving needs very precise timing to be safe, and dive watches were originally intended for professional divers, these watches have for long gone beyond just being the timepieces for divers. First becoming prominent in 1927, following Rolex's invention of the Rolex Oyster, dive watches are worn today by different categories of watch lovers, from the most luxurious models and brands like the Rolex Submariner, to budget models like the Seiko Prospex. Since dive watches started garnering popularity, watchmakers have been increasingly focused on increasing the depth at which their dive watches can be used, and this has made dive watches generally much safer and highly durable timepieces. Dive watches also saw some of the most rapid and novel innovations in watchmaking. The first titanium watch case ever for a timepiece was invented by Seiko, and this was closely followed by ceramic watch cases. These novel materials and designs, coupled with other clever innovations, meant that dive watches could survive even under 1,000 meters of water, and all of these unprecedented advancements in watchmaking simply scaled the popularity of dive watches even higher. With dive watches originally designed for military use and professional diving, these watches ordinarily come with much improved functionality. Water naturally blocks light, and dirty water especially makes it nearly impossible to see through. Diving requires every dive to be timed to the minute, with this necessitating that dive watches be specially created with clear dials and large hands, as well as with self-lighting or luminescent features. These large, clear dials make the dive watches so easy to read and have for a very long time made dive watches unsurprisingly popular timepieces. Today, both vintage and modern dive watches have continued to use different substances in creating lume, which allows parts of the dial and hands-on dive watches to glow very brightly. Dive watches are customarily manufactured to be tough, given the bumps and knocks that they receive while divers make their way in deep waters. It's a well-established fact in the watch industry that dive watches remain some of the toughest timepieces available, and professional dive watches have always been sold based on their toughness. Their designs have consistently been rugged, and they have much improved security and safety functions that make them more durable than other types of watches. While big watch brands like Rolex and Omega may sell their dive watches today as luxury watches, these watches have still not lost their peculiar toughness, and their all-around usability continues to make them widely popular timepieces amongst many watch lovers. As underwater diving or scuba diving gained popularity in the 1950s and 60s, so did dive watches. Many brands since then have continuously done different things to upgrade their watches towards making them more capable of resisting difficult environments where watches ordinarily shouldn't be worn. The double security, or DS system, soon became a thing that was exclusively peculiar with dive watches. These watches, aside from being water resistant, were now being made to be anti-magnetic and shock resistant. All these cool and exclusive features made people go wild for dive watches and birthed an unmatched level of obsession for this unique family of timepieces. Dive watches are likewise the only watch types with a guaranteed quality control mechanism. The ISO 6425 watch certificate is where the engineering techniques of watchmaking are put to the test. No other watch models have passed the ISO 6425 standard as much as dive watches, and according to the standard, watchmakers who test their watches and are certified by the standard get to put the special insignia, Divers XM, somewhere on the case of their watches or the dials. This standard subjects every watch to 4 major tests. First is an underwater reliability test that involves submerging the watch in water and at temperatures between 18 to 25 degrees Celsius for 50 hours. A condensation test that is conducted by heating the watch to as high as 45 degrees Celsius. A water resistance test that is conducted for 10 minutes and an overpressure of 125%, and a final test for thermal shock resistance that is conducted at varying water temperatures. Now, who wouldn't love a watch with such a proven level of durability and reliability? The fact that dive watches constitute the majority of timepieces that have completed the ISO 6425 standard has made them especially endearing to watch lovers all over the world. Like with all other watch models, the hype, marketing, and branding that come with the dive watches have also contributed greatly to their popularity. The earliest dive watches were widely endorsed by professional divers, top military personnel, and even the most famous celebrities. And since then, dive watches have become greatly popular amongst watch lovers who want to be associated with the brilliance that the dive watch exudes and are willing to pay just any amount to own one themselves. This distinct reputation of elegance and excellence has been carried across the decades, especially with the appearance of the iconic dive watches in many popular silver screen movies. The James Bond franchise has especially made many dive watches, most notably Rolex Submariner and the Omega Seamaster, the super popular dive watches that they are today. Dive watches have also been constantly and popularly marketed as products that are most fitting for people who are active, explorative, and extreme. This strategy has especially attracted a lot of the younger generation to dive watches, giving the timepieces even more popularity. Dive watches as such do not only sell as a fashion trend to fit the current clothing demands, they are now essentially being sold as a lifestyle, thanks to the brilliant marketing behind dive watches, and regardless of whether the person picking up the dive watch fits the painted lifestyle or not. Only a few watch models boast the heritage that the dive watches have. This class of watches still largely gets its popularity since the time of its invention. The first water-resistant watch was a very big deal back when it was launched, since only mechanical watches existed back in the day. Dive watches have continued to be remarkably consistent and have over the years been manufactured by so many great brands. So as far as dive watches are concerned, you now get a wide variety of options to choose from, with many at great value if you know what to look for. Collecting dive watches has become a sport for many and is undeniably becoming a mainstream fashion statement. Presently, no other watch class is being mass-produced as much as dive watches, and it's not very hard to see why. Not only are they capable underwater, they're extremely versatile and highly stylish additions to casual, smart, or professional attire, making them worthy collectibles on any given day.